Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the Easton Area Democratic Committee's Easton Goes Wild. My name is Larry Lauritsen, and I'm the chairman of the Easton Dems. This virtual event is about a few things. It's about our United States Congresswoman representing Pennsylvania's 7th Congressional District, Susan Wild. And as most of you know, Susan is up for re-election this year, and we must succeed in getting and having her re-elected. We will have a few words from our City of Easton's Mayor, Sal Panto, our state representative, Bob Freeman, who is also up for re-election. We'll have two other candidates joining us, Ahmad for PA Auditor General and Josh Shapiro for PA Attorney General for re-election. We have guest speaker Larry Helsham, Jr., the PA Political Director for Biden for President, and then, of course, Susan Wild. There will be cameos from a number of Easton businesses who all love Susan. We have hard-hitting questions from Susan from a number of local kids, as reported by EADC star reporter Michael H. Ross. And mixed in among all these things, we have superstar comedy from comedians J.R. Havlin and Leah Bonema. J.R. Havlin is a former writer for The Daily Show, where he won 8 Emmys for his work. Leah Bonema is one of the top 10 new comedians in the country. So with this being EADC first virtual event, how could you not be at least entertained, right? So let's get this party started with a few words from the City of Easton's Mayor, Sal Panto. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Larry, and welcome everyone to Easton Goes Wild. And yes, Susan Wild has to be there. We start with Biden Harris at the top of the ticket, and we come all the way down on the Democratic time. This is so easy this time to go into the polls or write in ballot and just fill in the Democratic ticket, because everyone is very important. You know, the gentleman that's in the White House, he loves the Roosevelt room and he loves the Lincoln bedroom, but he really, really enjoys the Oval Office. But he just hasn't decided. He can't find any research on President Oval. So much for my jokes. But we really should pick on our president. He didn't do anything. Of course he didn't do anything. Look at the situation we're in today. But he also had a small fire last week in the White House. Now, the news didn't report this, but his entire collection in the library burned. Yeah, both books burned. The problem, that wasn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem was he wasn't done coloring it. So, you know, I've been in local politics for a long time. I've watched people from the top as the president all the way down, and we have a wonderful group of people running for re-election and election. And you know, when I think of Joe Biden, I think of the good years, those 8 years when the working families were really, really important. And in Easton, along with the people like Josh Shapiro and a couple others, we have good people in our state. We're very fortunate. We need to re-elect them. And one is Bob Freeman, our state representative from the 136th district. Bob has been a great partner for Easton. The renaissance we've experienced in the last 13 years pre-COVID has been nothing short of miraculous, and it's because of the help we have from people like Bob Freeman. Yesterday, Bob Freeman and I were at an attainable housing project, 55 affordable housing units for people and families to move into our city, which is being, obviously we talk all about the high rentals, but Bob really helped us with that, with a lot of state assistance to get that project underway in an old environmentally sensitive area. So it is my sincere honor and my privilege to introduce Bob Freeman, our state representative today and in January.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the great job that you really do here in the city of Easton. You've helped to make this a remarkable recovery, a great renaissance in our community. I also want to thank Larry Lauritsen and Matt Muncy for the outstanding job that they do as party chairs, promoting the Democratic Party and promoting Democratic candidates, as well as all the members of our committee, our Democratic committee, and the work they do to get out the vote and to promote our ticket. I'm very pleased to be running for re-election this year with Congresswoman Susan Wild. Susan has an outstanding record and has done an outstanding job in representing us in Washington, fighting for the needs of working families, fighting for health care coverage, addressing climate change. We need to keep her in Washington to represent the needs and interests of the people here in the Lehigh Valley, because she truly does an outstanding job. And we have a great Democratic ticket this fall, with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris at the top of that ticket as our candidates for president and vice president. They will work hard to restore the normalcy that this nation needs. after 3.5 years of Donald Trump. They will defeat this pandemic. They will revive our economy. They will address climate change. They will protect healthcare coverage and Social Security. And they will win the struggle for social justice and equality in America. Our statewide rural office candidates, Attorney General Josh Shapiro, Treasurer Joe Torsella, and Nina Ahmad, our Auditor General, are all also excellent candidates. They're proven effective leaders, and they deserve our support. They're worthy of our support. This year's election is one of the most important elections of our lifetime. It will decide the direction of this country for the next 4 years, but more importantly, it may very well determine the kind of country that we are for generations to come. Please make sure you vote, that you get your friends out to vote, and that you get your vote in early with a mail-in ballot, in particular if you have concerns about going to the polls because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mail-in ballots are a good protective way to get your vote in this year. But please, please, please make sure you vote, make sure your vote is counted, and make sure your voice is heard. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Take care.
Yay!
I'm co-sponsor of something called the Restaurants Act, which is only for small and independently owned restaurants that we're trying to get to a vote, which would literally be grants to match your 2019 revenue for 2020.
Right.
So whatever your revenue was in 2019, it would bring you up to it in 2020.
Yeah, right.
And that's grant.
We'd love everyone that can vote to vote, rather than people not doing anything. They have to do something this year, and they have to vote. I don't care who they vote for, but it's important that we vote for the right people, in a sense that immigrants and all these things that are really important to us depend on people like Susan Wild as well. So please vote for Susan Wild.
So I think it's important as a small business owner and also as a resident of Northampton County to vote for Susan Wild, because I truly believe that she has our back. I feel like Susan's initiatives and what she does on the Hill for us, you know, she's always standing up for small business and the people that live in and work in the Lehigh Valley.
Hello everybody, it's Ron and Ken from Mercantile Home in downtown Easton. We hope your night is filled with laughter as everyone is raising money for Susan Wild.
Yep, and we just want to encourage everybody to vote this November. Vote for positivity, hope, lightness, change, all the things. We need more people like Susan Wild to stay in Congress. And we need Biden, Harris in the White House. Vote, vote, vote. Vote, 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 vote.
Vote! Pennsylvania for Wild Polka. Vote for Susan Wild.
Thank you, Earl.
Locally in the Lehigh Valley, what opportunities have opened up for us under a previous administration, what opportunities have sort of stagnated under this current one. I feel that we have to exercise our right to not only vote, but to send emails, to use our spare change, and even if it's just a $5 or $10, donation to someone whose platform is a bit more humanistic than it is corporate mantra. I think that that's incredibly important. And I know Charlie Dent is somebody that I always had a great deal of respect for, and I know that he works really hard for the Lehigh Valley. And Susan has really just stepped in with that same amount of passion, that same amount of energy, drive, effort, commitment to hearing people on the street and people in the communities here in the Lehigh Valley. She doesn't just work out of Washington. She's here present, seeing what's going on and talking to people and finding out how their lives are being affected by policies in Washington. And she's really working very hard to make things better for people who live here in her home district. And that's why I think it's important to just continue to keep her in her seat.
Former president of Philadelphia chapter of the National Organization for Women. She also is the former deputy mayor for public engagement under Mayor Jim Kenney. Welcome to our next Auditor General for PA, Nina Ahmad.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me, just to be sure? Okay, wonderful. Well, good evening, Easton. You guys are putting on a great show. I actually put on bling and I dressed up so I could be here, part of the event. You know, with this Zoom calls, we're doing everything to feel like we're right there with you. And this is going to be a monumental effort. With our 800,000 plus Democratic advantage, we need to turn each one of them out to make sure Susan Wild gets in, the Biden-Harris ticket gets in, I get in, everybody up and down the ticket gets in, because we must save the soul of this country. So much is on the line, because Trump lies, we die. 200,000 plus people are dead already because our federal government has failed us. We need Susan, we need the Fab Four there to make sure they are securing our rights every day. I know Susan. She's wonderful. She's a bundle of energy in a small package. I'm a small package too. So I love to see her be a mighty woman in a small package. And I can tell you that as your Auditor General, I will make sure your tax dollars are used with integrity, but more importantly, with transparency and accountability, so that we can see how equitably those dollars are being used. Equity is critical to see how 67 counties fare, Lehigh County, Northampton, and everyone else, to make sure we have broadband access for everyone, make sure we have healthcare for everyone, make sure our children are educated. We are not 47th in the country in how much we invest in our children, but we need to work with our federal government, which is where Susan comes in, to make sure that those dollars come to our state, to make sure we not only get those dollars, then we use them efficiently. I'm a scientist, and I tell you, I'll be the first person of color to be in the statewide executive office in the history of the state of Pennsylvania. That matters. Lived experiences matter, and I intend to make sure I bring everyone to the table and I keep that door wide open so people can follow right behind me. There's much to do. Let's roll up our sleeves, turn Pennsylvania a deep, deep blue, and we have the votes. We just have to turn them out. And shut your ears and eyes to the nonsense that's around you. Keep your head down. You are the people who do the work. You're the people who actually do the turning out of voters. So I thank each and one of you for as much as work that you're doing. I appreciate you. We all appreciate you. We can't be everywhere, so you have to be our validators. You have to be speaking on our behalf, and we'll reach everybody by Zoom. I'm actually traveling. Hopefully I'll be down there before November 3rd. I thank you everyone for having me. I'm excited to be here. I will be here in my full glory with my bling and my funky shirt. And thank you, Michael Laws, for giving me this background, because he made sure I fit in with the rest of you. I look forward to working with all of you and driving home this entire ticket on November 3rd. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm so excited to vote for Nina Ahmad. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Barry Steiner. I serve as a volunteer on the Easton Area Democratic Committee. I represent College Hill, Ward 3, Precinct 4. All of us on the EADC are working to turn out the vote. We can't wait to turn Pennsylvania blue. But before we get, and I'm really excited because I'm going to be announcing and introducing to you our first featured comic of the night. But before I do that, I want to introduce you to our laugh track for the evening. You might be noticing that you're hearing some laughs there. We're joined tonight by Easton's favorite Aussies, Jason Hoy and Mel Hanch from Tucker Silk Mill. Can we hear them right now? Let's see, I don't know that I hear their chuckles. And we're also going to be joined by Janet Gay and Pat Hayes.
They have to unmute. They have to, they have to unmute.
Oh.
I can hear you.
There we go. All right, so now we'll probably hear them. Those are the voices you're hearing now. They're going to be laughing along with you at home. Okay.
No.
Now, can we hear all your laughing voices, guys? Oh, great. You're a good.
No evil laughs.
All right. With that out of the way, I am proud to introduce comic J.R. Havlin. J.R. wrote for The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, where he won 8 Emmy Awards. He also wrote for The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. And at the end of every week now, J.R. releases his Friday Rant. It's his own written take on the week's news, which you can find on his own website, which is havlinland.com. So hopefully you'll check that out. I'm excited to introduce J.R. Havlin.
Hey.
Let me make sure I can see if I see myself here. All I see is Jason Hoy's name. I'm on, we're good?
You're good.
You're on. You're on.
Thank you very much, Barry. I wish I could say this is the first time my opening act was an accordion player. I'm happy to be here. I'm still not used to these Zoom shows, so I guess I'll just wait a minute or two to let the wild applause die down. That ought to do it. What am I doing here? What is my connection to Easton? Well, first of all, I'm here to help you support what is left of democracy. All right? It's gone through kind of a rough patch, been a bit shrouded for the past few years in sort of a, how do I say, a hateful blanket. But I believe that it's poised for a John Travolta after Pulp Fiction level comeback. I'm excited about it. And all of you are helping to make that happen, so thank you very much for that. As for my connection to Easton, my wife and I have dear friends, Margaret and Amir, who some of you might know. They lived there for a while with their 2 kids. And we would come out with our own kids and visit them. We always loved being in Easton. We spent a lot of money at the Crayola store, so, you know, local economy. Plus, I was always a huge fan of heavyweight champion Larry Holmes. So Easton's pretty much got it all for me. Right now, I live in New York City, but I'm originally from California, which, as you know, is currently on fire. All right? Like all of it. Like what part of California? Well, just the California part, the entire thing. And it's not, by the way, because they didn't rake the leaves, okay? Let's be clear. That is a simpleton's conclusion to a desperately serious issue, something we've been seeing far too much of. Though it's not surprising that if pretty much anything goes wrong outside, our current president's immediate reaction would be to blame the gardener. There are plenty of reasons why there are so many wildfires, hurricanes, other extreme weather situations. Global warming is obviously one of them. Something has to be done. Humans are another. And the third is dumb humans. It's an unfortunate demographic that has made a considerable surge in the past few years. For example, one of the larger fires in California, you may know this already, was started by a couple having a gender reveal party using pyrotechnics with color in the middle of a forest. You couldn't just cut a cake, maybe release some balloons, I don't know, wait and see. What's the worst that could happen? You have to return a onesie that says daddy's girl? Look, I have kids. I get it. I understand the miracle, blah, blah, blah. So I hate to break this to everybody, but if you're having one of the 130 million babies that will be born in the world this year, chances are pretty good yours is not particularly special. Right? It's just not. And whether or not it's a boy or a girl, not only doesn't matter, it obviously flat out ignores the other options for gender identification the world has come to recognize, while seemingly half our country is busy wallowing in social unconsciousness. Besides, does anybody actually react differently when the supposed answer is revealed? Have you ever been to a reveal party and seen anybody shit on it? Like, it's a boy, damn! Can you check again? We just painted the nursery. Even Smokey Bear has weighed in on this, by the way. Not Smokey the Bear, okay? Don't get me started on that. It's just Smokey Bear, look it up. He has his famous slogan you all know, only you can prevent wildfires. But because of this couple, he had to change that. His new slogan is, hey, dumbass. Smokey Bear's words, not mine. Hey, dumbass, next time just ask your gynecologist. He had to do it. His paws were tied. And anywhere nature isn't destroying itself, our current president wants to pitch in. Remember back in July, he was in South Dakota, right? Gave a rally where nobody wore a mask because he said they didn't have to. And it was revealed by the governor, Kristi Noem, who's a huge supporter of his, that the White House at one point had reached out to her to ask about the process of adding additional presidents to Mount Rushmore. That's not a joke. I have a joke coming. That part's not the joke. It's astonishing. I asked him, especially if you asked him to name the other presidents who are on there, he'd be like, well, let's see, that's you have $1 bill, $2 bill, a mustache guy, and $5 bill, you know. All he knows. What could possibly be the pitch for putting him on Mount Rushmore? What did the White House say? Were they like, well, the guy we want to put on there next is already dumb as a rock, so that should help. It has been the weirdest, most messed up year in the past 4 years, and that is saying something. We have to wear masks everywhere we go. I mean, I get it, I do it, but every time I leave my apartment with my family, I feel like we're going to rob a bank. Bank tellers, by the way, must be like so nervous these days. I feel for bank tellers. Every time they go to work, it's like, I don't know if any of these people plan on robbing us, but I feel like it's going to be one of them. Things have been difficult. And though you can't honestly blame everything on a single person, there's an overall tone, isn't there, that's been set, and it has to change. I mean, who would have thought that the easiest way for me to explain bullying to my children would be to show them the President of the United States Twitter account? Right? So you see here, son, the president called the person a loser. Then that one he says is on drugs. Then he retweeted a video of someone saying white power. You should never do that, son. It's shameful. It's full of shame. Plus he cheats at golf. I mean, come on. We literally elected Judge Smales from Caddyshack as our president. And it turns out Carl, the greenskeeper, would have made a better one. And my guess is that all of this aggression of his comes from a place of insecurity. Don't you think? He lashes out because he's terribly insecure. Right? I mean, he can't honestly be comfortable with his hair. Despite what his quack doctors say, I seriously doubt he's the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency. He clearly had trouble getting down that ramp at West Point, which was neither steep nor slippery. And what is going on with the way he drinks water? What is that? What is two hands? When's the last time you used two hands on one glass? The only time you use two hands to drink is when you have two drinks, okay? That's another problem altogether. I don't even use two hands when I drink from a gallon of milk. I do it more often than you might think. You see, I'm actually also a race car driver on the side, very successful. I win a lot of races. There's a lot of milk involved. Anywho, I have tried for the past 4 years, all right, to wrap my head around what causes anybody to think this man is the right person for the job. He is not. It just doesn't make sense that people actually like him. I find it hard to believe, but I think I figured it out. I feel like Trump's presidency has been the catalyst for a huge coming out party for dicks. The ones that were afraid they wouldn't be accepted for who they were. So they had to hold it in. They couldn't be honest with people or even with themselves about how horrible they are on the inside. But then Trump becomes president and they're all like, I'm terrible. And I don't care who knows it. I'm mean, I'm defensive, I make fun of handicapped people, I'm an unapologetic bully and a compulsive liar, and now I know I can be this person, I can be my terrible, awful self and still become president someday. Thank you, Donald Trump. It's shameful, full of shame. But he opened that door, and the dicks came piling through it like a frenzied mob at a Walmart on Black Friday. Awful people have never been more cool with themselves, and we need to do everything we can to dial that back. It feels like the whole world is joining Cobra Kai, but I know we can beat Miyagi-Do. Like I said in a post for this event last week, I like purple. It's a cool color, and it reminds me of Prince. But politically, it's far too dangerous. And I commend everybody here for doing everything that you can to help turn Easton and hopefully many other purple areas around the country into a nice deep shade of virtuous blue. And that includes electing Susan Wild. And I appreciate everything that all of you are doing. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to pretend one last time that you're all clapping wildly. Thank you for having me, and good luck to us in November.
Thank you, JR. Thank you. You really can't make this up. And JR did a good job of explaining it to us. Thank you so much. Okay, now we're very lucky because we're going to be seeing a message from one of the nation's best AGs. It's Pennsylvania's Attorney General, Josh Shapiro. He's up for re-election on November 3rd. Make sure to vote for him. Here's that message.
Hey everybody, it's Attorney General Josh Shapiro. And boy, oh boy, I wish that we were celebrating Easton Goes Wild together. I'm sorry it's got to be virtual, and of course I hope you are healthy and safe, and I look forward to getting together in person again real soon. Let me start out by thanking Larry and Mike and Matt for your tremendous leadership. And I know they'd be the first to thank all of you, the committee people, the dedicated volunteers, the supporters who are going to make sure that the Lehigh Valley goes blue in this election, that we re-elect our fine Congresswoman Susan Wild, and make sure Democrats up and down the ballot get that needed boost coming out of the Lehigh Valley. Look, for my part, I just want to say thank you. You recall back in 2016, I ran to be a different kind of attorney general. An attorney general who would always fight for you, who would put people before powerful institutions. We've done that as we've stood up for survivors of childhood sexual abuse, stood up for students who are getting ripped off by those student loan companies and the for-profit colleges, working hard to keep our communities safe by combating gun violence and dealing with the opioid crisis, not just by locking up the dealers on the street corners, but also holding accountable those pharmaceutical executives who are the ones who started this crisis. And of course, we've got to reform our criminal justice system so that it is fair for all. While we've been doing that work, we've also been standing up to protect your rights day in and day out. And sometimes that's even caused us to have to go to court and fight back against the President of the United States who's broken the law and undermined your constitutional rights. Look, doing that work is my pleasure to do for you, and I'm humbled to have this opportunity to work for the people of Pennsylvania. And I hope we're going to continue to have that. I know that as you do your hard work for me and Joe and Nina and everybody else, that we're going to get that chance to continue our service to the people of Pennsylvania. I do want you to know that I recognize there's a lot of angst about the voting process and how that's all going to work out. And of course, the president has tried to sow doubt in our election process. Know this, I'm in court and on the front lines every single day to make sure your vote is secure, protected, and counted. And we're winning when we go to court against this president, and I'm confident we'll be able to protect your vote. So look, gang, it all comes down to Pennsylvania, and I think the Lehigh Valley is going to be one of the most pivotal areas of our Commonwealth when it comes to electing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, re-electing me and the rest of our ticket, especially Congresswoman Susan Wild. So thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what I know you will do going forward. I appreciate you all very much. I look forward to seeing you in person soon. Stay safe.
That was great. I cannot wait to vote for Josh Shapiro for AG, November 3rd. All right, I'm excited to introduce our next comic. You've seen her on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. She's an Emily's List Creative Council member and a weekly commentator on BuzzFeed's Did You See This? Give it up for Leah Bonema.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Round of applause for Barry. She's so amazing. Love Barry. Barry even told me I could be PG-13. So, woo! Look out. I was telling everybody earlier how excited I am to be here. I'm zooming in from my apartment in Queens, and this is legitimately our entire apartment. That's the kind of space we're working with in New York. And I don't have a computer that can do a green screen fun background. So we actually painted our door blue for Pennsylvania. So that's the kind of democratic love we have in this apartment. So very excited to be here, and it is going on Zoom shows. I don't know if JR feels this way. It's always like, you're like, am I going to remember how words work? Because, as a comic before COVID, you'd get up on stage like 1, 2, 3 shows a night. And now I'm like, I don't even remember how sentences go. So thank you for bearing with me. Very excited. I also signed up to do postcards for Pennsylvania. So I'm going all in. They arrived today. I got 500 postcards that I have to write by the end of the week. So gonna watch a lot of Love is Blind and send those out after the show. I live in New York City. I'm originally from Maine. And I was, like JR said, we've had so much crazy stuff that I actually looked up the jokes that I was doing in January to be like, what did I think was a big deal before COVID? And this is what I thought was going to be the big news story. The headline was, Captain America actress murders her mom. Which probably you guys don't remember because it doesn't even make the top 100 now. But the title was Captain America actress murders her mom. And then it was the article. And then online, it was a whole bunch of people in the comments section arguing about whether or not the woman could be considered the Captain America actress. Now, I normally don't engage with comments online because my therapist told me to stop interacting with crazy, right? Because you can never win with crazy. Crazy's never like, oh my God, I just never thought about it from your point of view before, right? You'll become crazy. So, but this time I jumped in and I was like, hey, what about the part of the article where she murders her mom, right? That's arguably the story. And this guy was like, yeah, still does not make her the Captain America actress. And then he said, I don't even think she's an actress. She doesn't have lines. She's just a featured extra. And I was like, oh my God, I bet that's what her mom said. Yeah, right before she killed her. You guys got it at home. I live with my boyfriend in a very small apartment, and we stayed inside for COVID from March 15th until the beginning of July. And I think we fared very well because we've been living in a small area for a long time with irregular schedules. And before this happened, we'd already come to the part in our relationship where we love each other's idiosyncrasies, which I think is important, right? Like I love when he comes out of the bathroom late at night, has that little wet spot on his boxer briefs. Right? Because when we first moved in together, I had no idea what it was. I thought we had a leak in our ceiling, which is plausible, right? We live on the top floor. So I was like, oh my God, there must be a dip in the roof. Water has probably accumulated from like a rainstorm, and now it's dripping through a crack onto his man panties. I was like, I'll go up there, I'll shellac it. I can fix this. Not what it is. It's a pee spot. He pees a little bit after he pees. How cute is that? Right? There's like the regular pee, and then no matter how much he shakes it, there's a little bit of pee that comes out after. What? How would I have guessed that? I have never peed on my own leg and then been like, you know what? I'm just gonna leave it. I'll leave it. Talk. He's like, babe, I'm my air dry. I was like, well, we are using air way differently. As a woman, you're never like, you know what? I don't need paper. My jeans will get it. I'm just gonna let my jeans get it. One of the things I love about relationship, I tend to get worked up about stuff and sort of can't see the tree for the woods. And has a very good calming effect on me. One of the things I struggle with is doctors. I don't know how obviously I appreciate our doctors and nurses. They're incredible. I just, as a person who didn't have healthcare for a long time, Affordable Care Act, hate you, Mitch McConnell. I associate doctors with emergency situations. So I always get nervous. Obviously I go to a gynecologist, right? I'm taking care of the goodies. And then I go to a dentist, and I feel like if something is wrong, it's going to surface at one of the two ends. Right? You just catch it at one of the sets of lips. PG-13. That's how I do doctors. But then this was like a big moment. I started getting abdominal pain, and I don't want you guys to worry. Everything ends up being okay. This is just a story of how I humiliated myself. Physically, I'm fine. Mentally, the jury is still out, but this works out. So I started getting abdominal pain. I ignored it. And then finally, my boyfriend was like, babe, I think you have organs in there that we shouldn't wait for your dentist to find. And I was like, okay. So I went to CityMD, which I love. It's an urgent care in New York. They're fantastic. I actually just did my COVID test there. Negative. They're so good. But I picked them because I liked their font, which I don't know how you guys pick doctors, but I don't think the way to go is because you like their signs. But that's what I did. And I went in. I was so nervous. The first thing you have to do is pee in a cup, which I should have practiced at home. It didn't come out where I thought it was going to come out. I assumed it would be a straight shot. I don't know if any of the other ladies have had this trouble. I didn't send out a little warning pee. I just fully committed, and you're actually leaning forward. So I missed the cup, and then I started laughing, which sort of just shot it out like a fountain, peed up my whole arm. Crisis, right? I'm out of pee. I don't know what to do. Going over all the options, I definitely chose the wrong one. I opened the door, pants still around my ankles. Because in my mind, the worst thing to do was to make the woman waiting for me think that I was lying. And I wanted to show her the evidence that I tried. So I was like, hey, oh my goodness, I missed the cup and I'm all out of pee. But I did pee up my arm. Do you want me to try to sluice it into the cup? Because I can sluice it into the cup. And then she actually gave me that look like, don't make me figure this out for you. And just like shut the door in my face. So I obviously stayed in there for 2 hours. Then I meet the doctor. I don't know if you guys have ever had to say something stupid to a doctor. I know that you're not supposed to ignore abdominal pain. So I tried to dress it up, make it sound like I wasn't crazy. I was like, hey, I've had abdominal pain for like 4 months, and I was hoping you could eyeball it. And then, worst part, if I could take anything back, it would be this. I said eyeball it, and then I just went into a shoulder shake. Mortified, mortified, mortified. But when I get nervous, I start doing Zumba moves. It's like an anxiety, you know what I mean? It makes me feel happy. It's my happy place. You do a body positive movement. It's supposed to make so then I'm dancing. My brain is like, shut it down. You look like an idiot. But my body's like, show them the full moves. Like, do the full ball change. You got it, girl. You got it, girl. I keep dancing. He keeps staring. And then finally he goes, is this a tick? So I was like, yeah, it's a tick. And then he danced me over to get a CAT scan because you can't have a CAT scan for 4 months. I mean, you can't have abdominal pain for 4 months. Again, this turns out okay. But I was so nervous. I don't know what's in my body. I could be full of ketchup. You know what I mean? So I just start going through all the seasons of Grey's Anatomy trying to self-diagnose. By the time I get to the hospital, I'm so worked up. The first thing they make you do is drink a gallon of poison. I don't know if anybody's had a CAT scan. A gallon of poison. They don't call it poison, right? They call it dye. And I was like, how are you spelling that? I am not drinking anything in a hospital called dye. I need you to take it out, bring it back in, call it not gonna die. I'll drink that. Right, I'm just having a full panic attack. They send the tech in, and the tech is like, Miss Bonema, could you please calm down? You're making everybody in the waiting room so uncomfortable. And I was like, really? Do you want a sip of my dye? And he was like, no, thank you. And then he went in the other room and put on a vest made out of lead. But I was like, well, yeah, we got to get it together. So I drank my poison. I drank, you got to drink a cup every 5 minutes. I drank it all. The doctors come in. They talk to me. They leave. I take all of my clothes off. They come back in. They look at me. They are upset. Right? I can't figure it out. I'm too panicked. They all exit. Now, I don't know if you've had a group of people exit a room when you're naked. But it is disconcerting, to say the least. So then I just freak out. I call my boyfriend. I was like, can you please come meet me? I have peed on my hand. I drank a gallon of poison. And now I'm naked. And he just very calmly goes, babe, who told you to take your clothes off? Right. So then I went back through the conversation I had with the doctors in my head, and I realized nobody. Right. No one had even suggested I take my clothes off. I just got so nervous. I was like, this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then you'll have to be naked, which actually turns out to be entirely false. Right? You never have to take your underwear off when you're getting a CAT scan. It is a machine that sees through your skin. Right? So they had to send the tech back in, and the tech was like, Miss Bonema, can you please put your underwear back on? You are still making everybody in this waiting room so uncomfortable. That is unfortunately a very true story. And about a whole wing of a hospital seeing me naked. And one of the things I love most about New York, people are like, oh, you can do anything here. People won't see you again. That is absolutely not true. Even in a city of 8 million people, I will one day still run into one of those people from the waiting room. But what's great about New York is they will very calmly be like, oh, there's that naked chick from the waiting room. And it'll be no big deal. That's what I love about New York. I know we're an anarchist city, but I don't know if you guys know this about New York. Today, it just got outlawed that you're no longer allowed to poop in public. Did you know that? Yeah. After, 8 million years of people pooping in New York. And I was like, what a win. And it reminded me of one of my favorite New York stories. Living here, I feel like a lot of times you just ignore 90% of what's going on. Otherwise, you can't get from A to B because it's too overwhelming. It's just like litter, 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 rat, rat, rat. Why does that man have 3 arms? Oh my God, it's not an arm, it's a penis. Now I'm talking to myself again. And then it's just like one little thing will throw you off, and it takes you out for like a week because you've been ignoring so many crazy things for so long that it's just the smallest thing takes you down. And for me, I was on 23rd Street. This is in February, right before COVID. I'm coming out of the R train, which is downtown. I walk outside. I see something out of the corner of my eye. I think to myself, don't look at it. You'll never unsee it. You don't want to see it. And the other side of my brain is like, you know what? I think we want to look at that. we'll put it on Instagram. It's going to be a great time. So I stepped to the side, right? I don't understand these people who stop in the middle of walking traffic. I honestly can't. It's like I hope they go first in the next apocalypse. You know what I mean? People who just like stop and then you all run into them. Or people that look at their phones when they're going upstairs. What, are you watching a video on how to walk on stairs? If not, get off your phone. You know what I mean? So I stepped to the side. I looked down. Poop shaped like a banana. A shanana. My day was over. You know what I mean? There is a mystery to solve. I'm still thinking about it months later because either somebody pooped a banana, which seems unlikely. So then the only plausible answer is that somewhere in New York, there's actually a poop whittler. And then you're like, what does that involve? Like a little whittling shop? You know what I mean? Are there other poop fruits at other stops? I actually took a picture and sent it to my boyfriend. And I was like, is this a Banksy exhibit? One of my, I'll leave you guys with this story. This is a little edgy for the late night. One of my favorite things to do on the subway, this one's for Barry. One of my favorite things to do on the subway is I like to read dirty books. Anybody else at home? JR, Barry, anyone? Somebody. I cannot read them at home because then it feels like a conscious choice. But if I read them on the subway, it just feels like a coping mechanism. You know what I mean? I'm just dealing with the chaos. I had never read romance novels, I guess you could call them, or bodice rippers. You know, that's like historic romances, the pictures with the ladies like coming out of their bodices. You know what I'm talking about. You can get them from the library. So I had never read any because they all looked like the Cinderella story. You know what I mean? It's always like an updated version of a fairy tale, right? Now instead of a glass slipper, she has a ball gag. That's like the big difference. But all of these stories, the men are always very wealthy. And I don't mean like, regular income. Maybe they have health insurance. I mean like own an island. It's obscene. You're like, I just like a guy who pitches in 50% of the housework. That's all I need. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to like have an airplane. Let's take it down a notch. And then the women are always virgins, which is great. Lose your virginity when you're ready. But in these books, they're virgins. They meet this guy. They have amazing sex the first time, and then she has an orgasm. And you're like, what is this? A science fiction novel? I can't. Just unfair expectations. So I had never read any. And then one night, I'm on the E train, which if you're don't live in New York City, the E train is where a lot of people's dreams go to die. It is just so depressing. It often never goes where it's supposed to go. I work late nights. I was on the train. We stopped in the tunnel and the conductor came on, and this is a true story. He said, I think we live here now. That's what he said. So I knew it was going to be a long time. I pull my phone out and I actually still had cell service, which is incredible. So I immediately go to my phone, right? You gotta distract yourself before you have a panic attack. I go to my iBooks. You actually have free books in your iBooks, which I didn't know that. Did you guys know that? It's like a library. I actually told the whole train car, I was like, you guys have free books. And they were like, shut up. And I was like, sorry. I was excited. But the only free books in your iPhone is romance novels. They're not giving you anything else for free. And the Bible. But I read the Bible. I grew up going to church school. So I felt like it was God's way of being like, get in there, you dirty girl. You deserve it. You know what I mean? So this is such a fun memory. I never read, I didn't know how to pick. So I just downloaded the first book in the queue, which was Snowed In, Bad Boy. Snowed In, comma, Bad Boy. Once you throw a comma in the title, you're like, this is going to be a classic. It should be canonized. You know what I mean? And not Edward Snowden. This is not Snowed In, 2 words. Bad Boy. So now that I've read a lot of these, let me just say, I understand how they work. They just jump right into the story. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of character development. There's no metaphors. Nobody's like inside a whale or lost in a desert. They're just getting you to the intercourse. That's how these, but having never read them, it was abrupt. This is how it started. Lady driving through the Rocky Mountains, snowstorm, no pants on. What? I was taken aback. Right? I'm from Northern Maine. I have never in my life gotten into a vehicle in any kind of weather without pants. Right? It's a hazard. How could you be so ill prepared? It doesn't even have to be snowing. The air could just be fat. And I'd be like, it's going to precipitate. Let's make sure everybody has pants. So I'm already riled up about this book. She's driving. She goes off the road, which of course she does. There's no way this chick has snow tires. She doesn't have pants. Unbelievable. She sees this little cabin in the distance, which thank goodness, otherwise I would have had to worry about hypothermia. She runs to the cabin. She knocks on the door. This is where we meet our bad boy. So this is where the whole thing flips. I assume the title was She Snowed In with the Bad Boy, right? Very direct reading. It's a snowstorm. They're snowed in. No. I woefully undersold this author. He is a snowed in bad boy emotionally, right? Separate from the storm. He is snowed in his heart. Yeah, very deep story. So she knocks on the door, he opens it, he invites her in, not mentioning the no pants situation. She comes in right away. She must have been an empath. She reads the room perfectly. She puts a hand to his chest and is like, you feel like a snowed in bad boy. And like, he doesn't get it yet. You know, he's like, what? He doesn't know how to communicate with his family. He's like, what? And she's like, it feels like there's an ice storm in your heart. And he's like, what? And then she proceeds to melt his heart with her vagina. That's the rest of the book. It was 150 pages because it was a lot of ice she had to melt. You think it's over? It's not over. You're already like, this is the best book ever. No, they wake up the next morning and it's Christmas. Totally not ready for that. I love a holiday movie. I'm nothing but a Christmas fan. They cook Christmas turkey, and that's how they close out that book. Phenomenal. You guys, thank you so much for having me and letting you share my favorite New York stories. Everybody vote. I'm so excited to get to be a part of tonight. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Leah Bonema.
Yay! Well, everybody, I hope you were laughing as hard as we were all here thinking about that romance novel. That really, woo! Okay, as Pennsylvania, thank you so much, Leah. As Pennsylvania voters, we know our state is important. It's almost impossible to go a second without hearing about the critical nature of our state in the upcoming election. Excuse me. I'm excited tonight to welcome Larry Hailsham. He's the political director for Joe Biden's campaign right here in Pennsylvania.
Thank you so much. It's really good to be with you. I was listening to a lot of the jokes and you had me laughing a lot. Really just wanted to thank you all for all that you're doing for the campaign. As everyone has noted, there are some really great people on the ballot right in Easton. Congresswoman Susan Wild is one of the biggest champions that we have. I will also tell you that we are in the fight for the soul of this nation. We are not taking Pennsylvania, any place in Pennsylvania, for granted. So thank you so much for all the work that you're doing for this campaign and all the work that you're doing to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. Unfortunately, the Vice President couldn't be here today, so I'm here in his stead. And I just really wanted to thank you for all that you're doing and all that you continue to do to really help us win and take back the Pennsylvania House. We only need 9 seats there. To win and take back the Pennsylvania Senate, we only need 4 seats there. And to really just, like I said, elect Democrats up and down the ballot. So I just want to thank you for all that and continue to do what you're doing. And please don't hesitate to reach out to the campaign if you ever need anything. So thank you so much.
Are you gonna vote, or are you chicken like me?
Everybody needs to vote.
Even chickens?
I wish chickens could.
I can't vote because I'm a farm animal.
Yeah, you
I
can't.
can't vote either.
Well, I'm sorry.
But you can.
And
yeah.
Would you register as a Democrat if you could?
I don't understand what that is. Would you tell us what a Democrat is?
A Democrat believes in equal justice for all people and all animals. How's that?
What? Animals too?
Yeah, animals
Does that
too.
mean no one will ever eat me again?
Well, I can't make that promise. I know a lot of Democrats eat chicken. So sorry, Mr. Chicken, Miss Chicken.
Yeah, I'm gender neutral. Yeah, save the gender neutral chickens. Vote Susan Wild.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I wish I was a wild animal.
Vote for Susan Wild.
Let's put the adults back in charge.
And send the orange clown back to the circus.
Vote Democrat this November.
Everyone be sure to vote on November 3rd. Stakes couldn't be higher. We'll be proudly voting for Susan Wild, Joe Biden, and the rest of the Democratic ticket.
All right, this is the news reporter from the EADC coming to you live with the interview from Susan Wild. And we've got a young man. What is your name, young man?
David Hendrickson.
David Hendrickson. David Hendrickson's got a question for Susan. Great, go.
What's your question?
What are you doing to help public education?
Oh, what am I doing to help public education? Well, that's a great question. So, I'm on the House Education and Labor Committee, and one of the things that I feel most strongly about is that the best way to combat income inequality in this country is to make sure that every child gets a good education starting with universal preschool and going all the way through 12th grade. We've got to make sure that our public schools are supported and that people are not getting a different quality education based on the zip code they live in. So we are doing a lot of work to try to equalize what the education in our public schools. And then after 12th grade, we're trying to do a lot to make sure that anybody that wants to go on to get a higher education, whether it's college or a technical trade school, that they're able to do that and that there's good funding for it and that they're not going to go into a lifetime of debt because they pursued a higher education. So, but public education, my children went to public schools, I went to public schools, and I think they are the bedrock of this country. And we've got to stop taking resources away from them and instead provide them with the kind of support that they need. Thanks for the question, David. That's great.
You're welcome.
This is WEADC and we're talking to Trey. Trey, how old are you? 5 years old.
Four.
He's big for 4 years old,
Yeah.
isn't he? Okay, great. Do you have a question for Susan?
Who do you work with?
Who do I work with? So I work with a whole lot of other people who got elected to Congress from around the country, men and women, people of all colors and ethnicities and religions, and all of us work for our own district. So I work here in the Lehigh Valley. This is Pennsylvania 7. I have colleagues and people that I work with who are from Kansas, people from Ohio and California, and all over the place, and a whole bunch of others from Pennsylvania too. You're a Steelers fan?
Yeah? How are the Steelers doing?
Okay.
They're good?
Michael Henry Laws reporting as we got Henry, you got that in common, from the EADC, man on the street. We got an interview. Henry's going to ask Susan some questions.
What's your favorite part of the job?
What is my favorite part of my job? You know, it's kind of funny because what I'm doing this morning is really my favorite part of my job, going out and meeting people here in Pennsylvania 7 and talking to them about what's on their mind, what kind of problems they're having. Before I met you, we were at some of the small businesses and we were talking about the problems they've had during this pandemic. So this is really my favorite part of the job. But in addition to that, I love being in Washington where we vote on very important pieces of legislation or laws. It's not just a matter of talking to people, it's about finding out what kind of problems they're having and then trying to figure out a way to solve their problems. Well, thanks for joining us, Henry.
Sure, it was a lot of fun talking to you.
Good. I hope I meet you again.
Me too.
EADC on street reporter. We're here for the EADC question with Susan Wild. We've got Jason about to ask Congresswoman Susan Wild a question. Very difficult question.
What do you think are the good qualities in a president?
What do I think are the good qualities in a president? Well, most of all, I think a good president needs to have compassion and really care about people and care not about every person that he or she is president of. I think that's the first and most important thing. Everything else kind of goes from that. You know, you want to implement policies that are really important and will help as many people as possible. I think you've got to make sure that you are lifting up people who are struggling. I think it's really important to focus on the people who need a hand up and not just on rich donors who helped you become president, but on people who just really are relying on their government to help them get by. So those are some of the things, but I also think that it's important for a president to be somebody who's had a lot of life experience, not just somebody who's, do you know the term born with a silver spoon in his mouth? A silver spoon is like when you're born to money and you've never had to work for anything, you don't really understand what the rest of us kind of have to struggle with and how we get ahead in life. I think it would be really nice to have a president who has grown up in a household where, you know, they had their struggles, but he or she succeeded anyway, because it's a great example for people that you don't have to be rich. Your parents don't have to be rich. You don't have to go to an Ivy League school in order to become president. And that's what I would really like to see in a president. So it sounds like we're on the same page. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming over and talking.
Thanks for president.
Would I consider running for president? The answer is no. I am very, but thank you for asking. I am very, very happy representing the 7th District of Pennsylvania. This feels like a good fit for me. I want to be able to know the communities that I represent. There are a lot of really wonderful people who should run for president, but to me, just being in my home district and really knowing people and what their issues are is exactly where I want to be. But thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the EADC reporter talking here with Celeste, who has a question for Congresswoman Susan Wild.
If you get reelected, what will be your main priorities be?
So if I'm reelected, there are so many priorities, but right now the top priority has to be making sure that we get this pandemic under control, that we give the assistance that we need to small businesses, to people who have been so badly affected by it, making sure that our local municipalities have the resources that they need to support, because the problem is this has really been, in addition to a terrible health concern, it's really been a huge economic hit for our communities. But the first thing we have to do is get the health piece of it under control. So I want to make sure that we are moving towards a vaccine. I would love to see everybody wearing a mask like we are seeing out here and not making noises about not wearing masks, and so that we can just get the health piece of it under control. I want to make sure once we have a vaccine that it's being distributed fairly across the United States. We've been really good here in the Lehigh Valley. Our COVID numbers are down, but I don't want to see us penalized for that by not getting the vaccine as fast as some of the areas that are what we call hot spots. So I think my very first priority has to be that. But then I want to go back, once we're hopefully done with COVID, I want to go back and work on the priorities that I've had all along, which is making sure that everybody is able to get good, affordable health care. We've got some really fine hospitals in this area, and the problem is that some people just can't afford to get the medical care they need. I want to make sure that people can get their prescription drugs at a reasonable price. I want to make sure that education is supported, public school education. And of course, and something that should really matter to you and everybody your age, I want to make sure that we are tackling the climate crisis. You know, you're probably aware of the wildfires in California. They're directly related to climate change. We've got to make sure that we are returning to that. COVID has kind of taken over everything in Washington and politics, and I just want to see us also not forget those other priorities. What do you think the priorities should be?
Yes, I definitely think climate change should be number one, but also COVID right now, that's like a big crisis. If people don't get a vaccine and they don't get vaccinated, then we're going to be in a big trouble. So that should be the number one priority, definitely. But and you're right, we should also think about the other things after we solve the first COVID problem.
You're right on with that. So what grade are you in?
I am in 6th grade.
You're in 6th grade. And so what are you thinking about long term? Like, what do you see yourself doing after you're done with your schooling?
I've always wanted to work in law and sort of learn some law. I've always been interested in that because I like making things fair and as right as possible.
Good for you.
Thank
So
you.
there's a lot of good opportunities to make sure that we see more social justice if you become a lawyer. So good for you. I'm
Thank
happy
you.
to hear that. I'm a lawyer.
Oh.
So anyway, good to have met you, Celeste.
Nice
Thanks.
to meet you too.
Thanks for the great question.
What's it like being in Congress?
What's it like being in Congress? It's exhilarating. It feels good to talk to people about what their concerns and their problems are, and then try to figure out a solution to their problem. It makes you feel good if you can figure out a problem and solve it for somebody. But I find it to be actually invigorating, and I really love being there.
Nice. And also, what kind of dog is your dog, Zoe?
What kind of dog is Zoe? Zoe should have been here with me today, but she's not. Zoe is a mini poodle. She's 8 years old, and she has an Instagram page called Zoe the Congress Dog.
Cute.
Hey, Hannah, do you know what exhilarating means?
No, not really.
Okay then. So, so I'm just going to tell you that exhilarating means it gives you energy. It makes you makes you feel good. Exhilarating. Some people find riding roller coasters to be exhilarating. I don't. But you know, it's something that really makes you feel excited and good. That's how I feel about my job.
Thank you so much, Easton Area Democrat Committee's star reporter, Michael H. Laws. Susan.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
How are you?
Good. Hey, so.
Hey, this has been quite a production. I've been enjoying this. This is awesome. You guys, you know, I think you guys can produce the next Democratic National Convention. You and Mike together.
You know, Susan, we should, except for one little problem.
What's that?
I was supposed to introduce Pastor Phil Davis from Shiloh's, Easton Shiloh Church, to introduce you. So we're just jumping it a little, you know, because, you know, Easton Goes Wild, and it's improv, and, you know, we're pretty good at this sometimes, maybe.
Yeah, welcome to my world. Nothing ever goes as planned.
You know, hey, while we're waiting, you two come up here for a second. And they have their masks on. You can keep your mask on or something. I don't know if you can see them. We got Deb and Barry. They're holding down the fort with us too.
Yep.
Hi, Susan.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm flickering in and out of existence here.
I know.
Yeah.
It's so weird how that works with the virtual backgrounds. Happens to me sometimes too.
It really is. And I have to tell you, Susan, that the conversations that the children had with you on Saturday made a really big impact on them. They talked about it with me later, and they just felt so nervous and proud and amazed by how thoughtful you were. So thank you for that. Yeah.
I didn't even know we were going to do that piece of it, but I'm so happy we did, because as I always say, when I started running for Congress, it was so that I could represent the future of this country, so that I could make sure that the future is not only intact, but that we're working towards a better place for our children and our grandchildren. So nothing gives me more pleasure than talking to a bunch of young people.
We did miss Zoe though. We wanted to see
I know. I
Zoe.
know. I can't believe I didn't have her for that.
Hey, what I can tell you is to all the businesses that you ran into and met with and talked with all the business owners, they all enjoyed that time they had with you, and they appreciated you listening to their concerns with what's happening right now these days. So
thanks. I meant it when I was talking to the kids and they said, what's my favorite part of the job? My favorite part of the job is exactly what we did on Saturday, where we went around and visited people and talked about the issues. It was great. It was a great day. Of course, it was also beautiful weather, but it was a great day in Easton. Really a great day in Easton.
Thanks. Well, I don't know if we're actually gonna be able to get Pastor Phil Davis on. Mike?
Hey everybody, Pastor Phil Davis here from Greater Shiloh Church in Easton, Pennsylvania. I want to say a few things about Congresswoman Susan Wild. You know, Susan's work in Washington is always driven by the needs and priorities of people from our community. Her committee work and her legislative work focus on addressing the needs of people in the Lehigh Valley. So important that we have a congressperson who knows what her constituents really desire. You know, she's focused on things like health care, workers' rights, education, and pay equity. Susan knows that the cost of prescription drugs, which is out of control, should never stop someone from getting the essential help and support that they need. And people in our community are truly struggling with those costs. But Susan has worked to lower prescription drug costs and ensure that everyone has access to the life-saving medications that they need. In just her first term, Susan has introduced and passed numerous bills that provide direct support for our community. Susan isn't someone who just talks about getting things done. She gets things done. And on November 3rd, make sure that you cast your vote. Voting is so essential. And we want to make sure that we have representatives, congresspersons in DC who will do the work of their community and keep their promises to the Lehigh Valley and beyond. Thank you, Susan, for the great work you do. We're behind you 100%, and we're going to send you back to DC so you can finish what you started. All righty. Thanks so much. God bless.
And thank you so much for that introduction, Pastor Phil. It means the world to me to have you introduce me, and also just to be part of this great community. And I'm excited that everybody's here tonight. I have been watching and listening even when I wasn't on screen. It was funny. A lot of hard acts to follow. I'm not nearly as comedic as some of the people that you heard from, but I'm guessing that maybe that's not what you want in Congress anyway. But it's been a really challenging year, and that's the understatement of the year. And I suspect that the rest of the year is going to be just as challenging, if not more so. I don't think this all suddenly gets better after November 3rd. I think we are in for a rocky road right up to 2021. So I think it's really important that we're able to do this kind of thing, even if it's virtual. I think it's really important to be able to stop, laugh, talk to each other, and really remember that we're all in this all together. And that's part of what the Easton area Dems do so well. Ever since I started running and really got to know the folks that are part of Easton Dems, I've just been so impressed by the camaraderie. Of course, we all miss Ann Laritzen's great potluck meals that we could have at the Dem office, but we still get a little bit of that, but not nearly enough. And it's just, I just think tonight is a fantastic evening, and I know how much work it takes to put something like this on. Larry and Mike and the rest of the Easton Area Democratic Committee, you have done a phenomenal job, and I'm not kidding when I say I think you guys should try out for next time we have to do a virtual convention. Hopefully that won't happen anytime soon again. Maybe you all should be the ones that run it. Let me just switch to the political end of things. I'm always so impressed by the work and the commitment of this group. You all really know how to organize. You really know how to get the vote out. You know how to drive excitement and enthusiasm and get petitions signed and get yard signs distributed and make sure that people in ordinary times are knocking on doors and that the right doors are getting knocked on. And the incredible activism of this group literally helped me get elected in 2018. So when I say I'm grateful to have you by my side again this year, I really mean it. This is a tough election year. There's no other way to put it. It's a tough election year up and down the ballot. We consider it to be the most important election of our lifetimes, but I guarantee you that there are people on the other side who feel like it's just as important. I think we're probably going to see record turnout, which means record Democratic turnout, but it probably also means record Republican turnout. And so we have to be prepared for that. And the only way to win is to out-organize, to outperform, to turn out more votes, and make sure that we are doing it with absolutely every possible voter out there. And that's why I'm so glad to have all of you on my side. I'm so glad you're as engaged as you are, because, you know, this is it. This election truly is it. What happens in just 39 days, and I think we're almost at 38 days in a few hours, will determine the future of our country and the world at large. And let me just say this, it's also going to determine the future of all those kids that you just watched interview me. I didn't interview them, they interviewed me. And that really is why I originally ran, and it is why I continue to care so deeply. Obviously, I care about all of us, people our age, our grandparents, the senior citizens, the middle-class workers, the people who are unemployed because of COVID, the people who are wondering if they're ever going to get back to work. But, you know, when you get into this kind of job, you really have to think about being in it. You have to think about the long haul. You have to think about the long picture. And what am I doing that is going to work for the betterment of this country, our region, and most of all, for the future of this country, which is the children and the young people. So as Vice President Biden says, we are in a fight for the soul of this nation. What America is, what we value, what we want the future of this country to be, all of that is on the line right now. And that can be a really frightening and daunting prospect. I can hear Mike Laws saying to one of the kids, now, do you know what daunting means? And I'm sure he would if that was the opportunity. But one bright spot in all of this is that groups like Easton Area Dems, like all of the other organizations throughout the Lehigh Valley that became really energized after the horrible November 2016 elections, they became active after that, but they've stayed active. And that's what's so impressive. In politics, staying power is everything. It's not enough to just turn folks out for one election. You really have to just put it all on the line and then keep it going. And I'm not going to say during off years, because there's no such thing as off years. We've seen that in the Lehigh Valley when we had 2017 and 2019 as these terrific years for us in local elections. You know, that's the kind of thing that we can have. That's the kind of outcome we can have if people stay active and energized and engaged. And that's exactly what all of you have done. And we've got to continue to bring people together of all backgrounds and even all political stripes to get involved and help elect Democrats from the top of the ticket all the way down. One of the things that I will tell you is that when I was running in 2018 and I had a 6-way primary that I'm sure some of you recall, I knew that we had to literally go looking for votes. We had to look under rocks. We had to look behind the curtains and see who are the people that we could get engaged in this process. Because remember, when you're running in a primary, you're basically running on the same platform, you're running from the same party, and it's difficult. And one of the things that we set out to do on my campaign that I think we were really successful at was we turned out a lot of people who were not conventional voters. we reached out to people who were relatively new to the Lehigh Valley, had only moved here in the last decade and maybe didn't really feel that they had their roots here yet. We reached out to those community college students. We have 2 of the finest community colleges in the country in Pennsylvania 7. And we know that community college students, more so than four-year college students, are likely to be from here and to stay here, and that they are the kind of people we want to engage in the political process. We reached out to people who had moved into this area because of the great healthcare networks and manufacturers that we have in this district, and they had moved here from elsewhere, didn't necessarily feel like a fabric of the Lehigh Valley yet. We found those people, we reached out to them, many of them supported us. I'll never forget when we had groups of students coming in from colleges outside the area, and some of you will remember this. We had that great big campaign headquarters over at Westgate Mall, and that cavernous room that could fit, I can't even imagine how many people, but we often got it almost packed. And if you recall, the Muslim community turned out for a series of nights of buffets for these out-of-town visiting students who were canvassing for us in the last 5 days leading up to the election. And those buffets, by the way, weren't just for the students, it was for everybody who was there volunteering. That kind of thing is what we managed to accomplish in 2018 in terms of organizing. And it continued to pay off in 2019. It's going to continue to pay off this year. I am committed to making sure that all of those people that we managed to turn out in 2018 turn out to vote in 2020, not just for me, but for all of the down ballot races, and most important right now, I have to say, for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for president and vice president of this country. I can't think of anything more important than to make sure that that happens. So, you know, I just want to say that the surge of activism that we are seeing isn't just happening right here in Easton, although of course, from my point of view, that's a great thing that it's happening here in Easton, but around Pennsylvania and all across the country, people are getting off the sidelines and they're doing what they can to make a difference. I have people calling from Connecticut and New York and New Jersey, calling our voters, texting them, sending postcards because they're in safely blue states and they want to make sure that they help a state like ours. So, you know, it's really just amazing when you see people who will spend that kind of time and their own personal time devoted to this kind of mission. And more often than not, my campaign is finding that when we talk to a person who plans to vote for a Democrat in November, that voter follows up by asking us, what more can we do? What else can we do to get involved? And that's exactly the kind of energy and enthusiasm for real change in this country that fuels my work in Congress every single day. It's what we need if we want to elect Democrats at every level this year. People like Nina Ahmad and Josh Shapiro, in addition to me, our state rep candidates. We've got some great state rep candidates. I hope some of them will win as well. We all know how badly we need to flip the Pennsylvania legislature. And of course, we have to recover from this time of crisis. I ran for Congress in 2018 because I thought we needed a representative in Congress who would always put the Lehigh Valley first. This year, it's clear that we need a president who will put Americans' needs ahead of his own. A state legislature that will work with the governor's office to keep all of us safe and healthy during this crisis. And yes, a Democratic majority in Congress that will continue working on behalf of the American people. So by showing up tonight, you have proven that you know the truth of this statement, that by working together, we can point this country in a better direction. Doing so will take all of us, and I'm so thankful to be on your side in this fight, and even more important, to have you on my side. Thank you so much for all that you're doing and will continue to do in these next 39 days. And with that, back to the Easton Dems chair, Larry.
Thank you, Congresswoman Susan Wild. On behalf of the Easton Area Democrat Committee and those watching, we love you. And thank you all for joining us tonight. I want to thank the captains of this event, Barry Steiner, Deb Hunter, who were also the sponsors of the two wonderful comedians that joined us. Our star reporter, cameraman, virtual event man, the man, Michael H. Laws, who we couldn't have done this without you, Mike. So thank you. Along with the rest of the Ways and Means Committee, Walter Russell and Selena Winchester for all your hard work. All the Easton Dem sponsors. Please stay tuned for the credits. We have the sponsors list below, which help us keep going with our office. Thank you, J.R. Havlin and Leah Bonema, for everything you did and keeping it fun, because Lord knows we need that. Thank you, Maricel Panto, Representative Bob Freeman, Nina Ahmad, Josh Shapiro, and Larry Helsham Jr. Thank you, Congresswoman Susan Wild, once again. Last but not least, thank you, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, for the work you did to improve the lives of all Americans. So with that, everybody stay healthy, pay attention to the credits. We'll see you soon. Rock on.